Hearties, welcome to another Heart to Heart, where we chat with the cast and crew of When Calls the Heart. I'm Jeanette from Michigan, and I'm here with a couple of our Facebook team today.
I'm Lori Pearson from Mobile, Alabama.
And I'm Dawn Bateman from Wiley, Texas.
And
I'm
today,
Neill Fearnley, one of the directors. Hi.
yes, so we're so excited you're here, Neill. And Hearties will recognize your name right away because you've been around since season 1. So welcome to the chat today. So you've been on the show since season 1. I checked and it looked like around episode 7 you kind of came onto the scene with When Calls the Heart. So we'll talk about some of the past seasons as we go, but we did want to talk about the episode that just aired. Peter DeLuise wrote it and you directed, which was a first for Peter, I think. I understand, right?
It was
Yeah.
for together. In a weird way, actually, if I may. The very first American show I directed was a little thing called 21 Jump Street with a young guy called Peter DeLuise.
No.
And so I've known Peter for ages and ages. So it was great fun when I got the script. Oh, Peter, this is going to be great. So we had fun together. Yeah.
That is so great. What a full circle moment. Yeah. Very cool. So it really resonated with Hearties and definitely so much positive feedback from this week. Did you kind of get that feeling when you were shooting it? Did you get a vibe that this would be a good one for the Hearties?
It's funny, but to some degree, many elements of which, yes. But the odd thing about making these things often is sometimes you think you've got one and you don't, and other times you don't know you've got one and you do, so there's that. But within this one, the Canfield story and concluding that and how that all came about and trying to figure out the music that we were going to put together for that and how to tell that part of the story, we thought we had something really fun and special there. We certainly did. I'll tell you something that the very end of the very last scene with Lucas and Elizabeth was originally, so here's magic that happens sometimes. That scene was originally written as a night scene. He didn't get back with the motorcycle till late at night. And it was originally a night scene. And it was originally taking place sitting on the steps of the Mercantile, which is all well and good and fine. But during the day, the light was beautiful and it was really great. And we were having a really, really good day. And the DP and I started talking. I said, wouldn't this be nice if this could make this day? And so we started to explore what we might do. And we thought, what if we put it by where we put it in the end, by the gas station, and sat them down there. So we phoned John Tinker and said, listen, we want to change this. Could we do it? And he was all over. He loved the idea. And sitting them there, the way it ended up in the beautiful light of dusk, as it was just setting, and the body language of the way they were sitting, kind of not side by side, but kind of opposed to each other. I knew we had a magical scene. I just knew it. And Chris and Aaron, we really want to do this at night. I said, trust me, this is going to work so well. And I'm reminded that John Ford, the great director, said that a good movie has no bad scenes and one great one, preferably at the end. And I thought we managed that. So in that way, I knew we had something special then. That you guys have said it's a whole episode. I go, well, thank you. Okay, we'll take that.
Wow, that's so great. And did that actually happen on the day of shooting?
On the day of shooting, literally as we were doing it, we were way ahead of schedule, first of all. So we would have had to wait for night. And what happens when we're in that position is we sometimes pull up other scenes from later in the schedule that we might be able to do. And we were doing all the mechanics that we do to get our day. And it just occurred to us that there might be something special about doing it this way. And it harkens back very quickly, those of you that remember when Daniel first showed Aaron Elizabeth the church. That beautiful scene again in this light. That was written as an interior at night with the church not being finished. And I said, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to go into an unfinished building. You don't get to see it. It's got paint cans around. And he's showing off. That doesn't make sense. And again, we literally were racing, what we call racing the light. And we shot that scene in 20 minutes. We had 20 minutes before the sun went down to get that scene. And we got it with a crew They all embraced
Oh.
the idea and they said, oh my gosh, let's do it. And we rushed out and rushed the dress, the beautiful gold dress onto Elizabeth, onto Aaron, and that shot of the church and the two of them coming up. And we had this magical scene. So what happens sometimes on the day, the writers are great. Don't get me wrong, they're beautiful and they come up with ideas, but on the day, sometimes you just see an opportunity and you try to embrace it. And sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But those two, it did.
Those ones it definitely did.
I was gonna say, yeah, you nailed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was gorgeous.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
That
I already love these tidbits, so let's keep
I
going.
know.
Yeah. So speaking of magical, you directed Jack and Elizabeth's wedding episode. And we can only imagine how much of a challenge that was to film, given the size of the cast and the enormity of we Hearties, our expectations with that. So tell us about what that experience was like.
First of all, we always know we have a great responsibility when those kinds of scenes in a series come up, when we know that they're pivotal moments, you know. And one of the things with our show that we find is that we're not a big show. So we don't have a lot of room to maneuver. So when you've got a massive cast like that, I think there were 24 principals, it's a long time ago, but there were at least 24 principals in it. And many of them are female cast who are, all the clothes are very challenging to get into, as you can imagine, the hairstyles, the makeup, all of that stuff has to be done. And it takes us a great deal of time to do that. So that literally, they were thinking 4 hours before they could get everybody ready. And of course, that's a challenge for us. Now, the way we shoot shows is we shoot, you may know, a master first, a big wide shot that tells us what the scene's going to be like. And then we get into the scene and we shoot the 2 shots and the 3 shots and the close-ups and all the inserts and all the things that go to encompass the scene. And I had this idea. I said, look, we all know what a wedding is like. We all know there's an entrance, there's a lot of standing and sitting, and there's an exit. We know those things. We know that the couple are going to be on the altar. We know that the minister's going to be there. So let's do this. We got ready, Aaron and Jack first, and the minister, and that's it. And everyone else was in the trailers getting ready. Now, what does that do? Now I've got a 3 shot of the 2 of them and the minister, plus their close-ups. But what I've also got is privacy. So in their most endearing moments, when they're connecting to each other, they don't have a room full of 40 people. They've got this intimacy that they can play. And as we shot those scenes with that intimacy and got those moments, now suddenly, you know, we have the bridesmaids are starting to come in one after another. So now I fall back a little bit and I get a wider shot. And that scene doesn't have to be as powerful now. It can be good, but doesn't have to be as powerful. And then a few more, and we fall back a little further and a little further. And finally, about 5 hours into the day, we were at the back of the room up high, and Aaron finally came into the room and got to the altar. We got that shot. And then as I recall, we broke for lunch 6 hours later, and they gave me 6 hours to shoot that scene. I'm not finished yet. We come back from lunch and we do what's called the turnaround. So now we're up by the altar looking back. Now those are fairly easy shots to do. It's people listening. It's certainly, and I'll give you another one. It's people listening. We also shot them, we shot them exiting and then we broke for lunch. Sorry, they rushed out, then we broke for lunch and came back to the turnaround because we have the light. So again, when you come back after lunch, they're in the trailers getting their hair and makeup redone for another hour so we can relight the other side. And then what I shot was, as I recall, I shot kind of all the people listening, and I ended with the curtain opening and revealing the dress. Now, this is the most important part of any wedding scene, the moment when the dress is revealed.
Yeah.
And oftentimes you'll get scripts where the writers have decided to show the dress to the bridesmaids. What do you think? We're not shooting that scene. We actually had one in this. I said, we're not shooting that scene. We are not shooting a scene where we see Elizabeth in that dress before it's revealed to the world. In the moment when we all want, when the wedding's taking place. I don't want to see that a day earlier or the next morning.
Sure.
So I pulled that scene. I said, we're not shooting that scene. Pull that scene. But you get it, the writers are trying to create the world and sometimes don't realize that the importance of the visual is the moment of seeing that. And then, of course, the culmination of the wedding itself. So it was a very stressful day, I must confess. It took us about 8.5 hours, if I remember rightly, to shoot the scene, which is, in some shows nothing, but in our show, overtime. So
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing. Very cool.
was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We all were really looking forward to doing that thing. We had a blast. We had a blast.
And I'm sure you know the Hearties loved every second of it. So that 8.5 hours was well worth it in our book. Because we loved it.
I'd take 2 days if I could, but they won't let me.
Well, we polled the Hearties for some of their questions, so let's dig right into those questions.
Okay.
Renee Chin Hatfield from Worcester, Massachusetts asked, what is the most rewarding part of being a director for When Calls the Heart?
Oh, Renee, great question. You know, I've had the privilege, I've been doing this job since I was 24. I've had the privilege of working on so many different shows. The thing about this show is that the unity of our family, my film, I call it my film family.
Yeah.
You know, the cast, the crew, many of our crew, you know, you have to understand that there are some massive shows in Vancouver, and many of our crew could be on those big shows, and they choose to be with us. And the reason they choose to be with us is because of the joy we have doing our work. There's no yelling and screaming and angst and agony. I mean, there's angst, but you keep it inside. You know, you know, calm and cynical on the outside, hemorrhaging on the inside. That's how we do it. But for me, it's just stepping onto that wonderful set. It just feels like a beautiful playground. Seeing the cast come out after the new season starts, and I come on the set for the first day, and the cast and the crew come back, it just feels joyous. It just does.
Yeah.
You know, and shooting a period piece, there's something magical about that in the first place, you know, just that framing of the shots and all of that. But we're just like a little family. We go there, we hunker down, we spend 4 or 5 months playing with each other and enjoying each other's company and creating things and trying with our you know, we're not a big budget show, but trying within the parameters of what we have to create something that is bigger than what it might have been otherwise, you know, and that's got to do with people's how can I put it, pleasure of being there, really, just their pleasure of being there, you know. So I've enjoyed every minute of it. I've said to them, I said, as long as you guys will have me, I'll come back. So you know, I'm there as long as you'll keep up with me.
That pleasure and that joy translates. That pleasure and joy that y'all feel definitely translates onto film.
Yeah.
We feel that when we're watching it. So
do you? Yeah. I was just talking to a friend of mine today, and her mom is a big fan of the show, and she said, yeah, she keeps watching it over and over. She says, yeah, I may be losing my memory a little bit, but that's okay, because it's joyous all over again each time I watch it.
I love it. Yeah, you know, we've been like interviewing or chats with the cast and crew, and the crew is the people that are just so interesting, but they are passionate about what they do, and you see it. And I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to kind of get them, you know, front and center for our Hearties, to see what they do. I love it. So good.
There's a lot of people do what we call show jumping, you know, looking for a big opportunity, go to a new show. People do move on. You certainly move up, and you want them to do that, certainly to move their careers. But a lot of people just don't on this show. They've been there for the long haul, you know. And we've had changes over the years. You just do, but when people are there, they're very happy to be there. So
yeah, I love it. So you have directed all of the holiday movies. And so someone was, Barbara Laird from Exeter, Rhode Island, especially loved the Christmas Blessing episode. So, and she was wanting to know what is your favorite of all episodes that you have directed with When Calls the Heart?
I'll just quit the Christmas shows. I'm going to say that one in particular, and I don't know if I can find it. I was going to call it up and I forgot. I have a photograph. That one in particular was so much fun to do, and very, very, very hard, I must confess. I don't know if I'll be able to find this picture, to be honest. Favorite episodes. Gosh, there's been so many. You know what? And it's a weird one in a way, because it was very different. It was what we call the grieving episode, when we lost Jack. That final episode, for us to explore those emotions and explore that loss, because there were two things going on. There was not just the loss of Jack, there was the loss of Daniel. So for us on the show, we were grieving his loss as well, to us, because he'd moved on. So, and then just all of us sitting with that and working with that. And it was very different for Hallmark to do a show about grief, and they took it on, and to get into that was so much fun. Fun's the wrong word, but challenging, and we got very lucky that day. That those of you who recall the scene where Elizabeth's at the graveyard in the mist, we showed up on the set, and Michael and I, the DP, I said, oh my gosh, it's misty. Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. And we said, nobody walk on the set. I don't want anybody on this. So we built the dolly track. We built the shot. We shot the beginning and the end in the mist. And by the time we finished that, the mist had blown away. And now we shot the funeral in the sun. So we just got this magical moment that you couldn't possibly plan for.
Sure.
And it gave a feeling and a mood to the whole show. So there was that, certainly the scene where the episode where the town was in rain and Jack was washed down the river and the mine collapsed and all of that. Those are big shows. So those are a lot of fun to do. So that was a great deal of fun. In the first season, the season with the miner who'd lost his leg, the episode with the miner who'd lost his leg, that was
a
really
good
moving and really had a lot of fun doing that. There's not one episode I haven't enjoyed. So it's just, that's a really hard question. And having been so fortunate to direct almost half of them, it's just I've sometimes lost track of which ones I did. But those come to mind off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few. But
so when you were directing an episode, what is the most challenging things that you kind of incur when you're directing?
Everything's different. I mean, the most challenging thing that comes to mind right now is there was a Christmas, I don't forget which one it was. It might have been the one you're talking about, where there was the Christmas parade with all the wagons and stuff coming up the street. Right. The master for that was shot last, because for us to get all of that ready is too hard. So again, I came up with the idea, well, we'll bring all the extras out and we'll shoot them applauding nothing. We'll shoot them applauding the AD walking up and down the street. And then we brought the first wagon out and we shot the first wagon sideways so you couldn't see down the street, and we shot that. Okay. Then we brought the second wagon out and we shot that. And then the third wagon and the fourth wagon. Finally, we're getting Santa Claus ready. So finally I have Santa Claus. And I said, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll get the whole thing at once, all the parade coming out, and we'll get Santa Claus coming out. But here's what happened. So Santa Claus comes out, and for reasons we don't understand, the two big, and we had all the elves, the little kids all around this wagon. So it's a dangerous scene to begin with. And suddenly the horses starting rearing up. And they stopped in the street and they started swaying back and forth. Now we screamed to the kids to panic, they knew we were given instructions. If anything goes wrong, you guys go to the outside of the set. So they bailed to the outside of the set. The wrangler can't get the horse to go. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I don't understand what's going on. All right, reset everything. Exactly the same spot, the horses rear up and they're doing this thing. Kids go, I don't understand. None of us understand what's happening. None of us. And the third time it happened, it literally happened a third time. And my AD, Bill Mizell, he said, oh my gosh. I said, what? He said, it's Kevin. I said, what? Well, he's going, Santa Claus, ho, ho, ho. The horse is here, whoa, whoa, whoa.
My word.
Who knew? They're going, well, we're supposed to stop. And they're like, go, no, we're supposed to stop. No, go. He's saying, whoa, I don't understand. What? So, okay, take 4, Kevin goes. And we put the sound in later, and it worked perfectly. It was a beautiful scene. But I didn't know going into that it was going to be almost a disaster.
Okay.
Gosh, who knew? Who knew?
Oh my word.
Goodness
gracious. That's funny. Wow.
So the challenges are sometimes things you have no idea what they are. Why is this not working? I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
So speaking about challenges, we wanted to talk about season 1 a little bit, when you were kind of part of when that show, when our show was first starting and getting the show off the ground. And a few of us Hearties saw an interview with Daniel Lissing on Paul Green's podcast, and he talked a little bit about the challenges of that first season. because the cast was smaller, and Aaron and Lori and Dan were all in a lot of the scenes or most of the scenes. And he described like having to run from set to set quite a bit. And what were, if you can talk a little bit about season 1 and some of those challenges. And
it was kind of interesting. There was many things going on. One of the things that happened with the show was that it had been conceived more as an ensemble show, but for mechanics that happened, it became more of an episodic show. So we had guest stars each week, which we kind of changed that in the second season. In any first season, there's growing pains. I mean, I've been fortunate to do the pilots of shows and continuing shows. On this one, I came in and I did episodes 7, 8, and then I did 10, 11, 12. I did 3 in a row. So I did 7 and 8, and then 10, 11, 12. Now, what happened was, it's from Hallmark's perspective, they're new at making series. And this isn't a criticism, it's just a fact, they were new at saying series.
Yeah.
So, and for also for Brian and Michael, they had their vision of the series, So as they got started and started to make the show, what happens often, and it happens on many shows, is you get deep into the show and you realize you need to make changes. The network isn't happy with something, you're not happy with something, the actors have gotten more comfortable, let's say. You've learned things, so you go back and you reshoot things that you've done, and it's just because you do. I mean, it happens all the time, And so we were going back and reshooting things and figuring things out, and by the time we got to the end, we're still trying to figure out the whole season, and I'll never forget this last day. We got to the last episode that I was directing, and notes were coming down from the network. They were seeing now, because what happens is, so, and I know there's a question coming up later, how do the mechanics of things work? But they're seeing edits come for shows that we've done 3 or 4 episodes ago. So now we're accumulating things that they would like to reshoot. And so by the last day, we had accumulated so much stuff that we shot for 22 and a half hours straight with 2 full units. So the DP and I were running back and forth. So we would go to the mine, let's say, and we'd light this way and we'd block the scene. We'd say, shoot that. And as soon as it's lit, we'll come back. We hustled up to the main set and we block that and light that. And then while they're lighting that, we go back to the mine, shoot that, do the turnaround, block that, run back up for 22 and a half hours. We had 2 breakfasts that day. We shot from 7 different episodes. We shot scenes from 7 different episodes. Besides finishing my episode, there were 7 different episodes. So when Daniel says running back and forth, he was literally, and they all were, but I'd say, okay, Daniel, good, that's good. You're in your civvies. I need you to run back and get into the Mounties outfit for the scene up at the town that's this way. Okay, but now we're going back to shoot the other side of the civvies. So back in your civvies and get back that way.
Wow.
We were doing this for 22 and a half hours.
Oh.
And but it was so much fun. I mean,
gallons of coffee.
Only because we're masochists. But that was pretty challenging. But it was, in the end, it was like, oh, we did it. We got it.
Yeah, wow. And here we are, 9 seasons in now. So
yeah. It got easier, way easier.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably no more
easier.
22-hour day. So great.
Love it.
Well, one of the things we touched on it a little bit in your intro. We talked about the Hearties family reunion that we've had 5 of. For Hearties who don't know, we've had the opportunity to go up to Vancouver for 5 times, and a set tour is part of the weekend. And Neill has been kind enough to host some tours of set, and we've always heard great feedback about your tour being one of the favorites. So for us, Jamestown is like, we feel like we're going back home, and we've only done it 5 times, so we can only imagine that it feels that way for you. How do you feel about the set? Do you have a favorite place, or?
I think, shooting in Abigail's Cafe is probably the best. Some of the sets are very hard. The row houses are very, very challenging to work in. We've made them a little better over the years. The first season, they were very difficult to work in. There were things in the, yeah, and you know what, you find this in you build a set, you start working on it, you go, oh, you know what, we got to change some things. The Mercantile, for example, used to have a post down the middle. None of the furniture shelves were on rollers, on casters rather, and there were no windows at the back. So what happens is you can't light efficiently, you can't work efficiently.
Mm.
So the next season we put in everything on rollers, we put windows in the back, we did stuff like that. When we did Abigail's Cafe, it was halfway through the season, and we knew it was Michael and I, the DP, we said to Michael Landon and Brian, look, can we tell you what you need to do for the set? So there's 4 doors in and out, there's windows all around. It's a really efficient set to work in, and it looks beautiful, you know. So we kind of evolve everything, and you'll see this year the infirmary has evolved. It's much better this season. It's much easier to work in this season. But originally, that set was originally written as just 2 scenes. There was one scene in an infirmary that they were never going to use again. Well, never going to use that again. And there was another scene on the other side in Dottie's dress shop, which was a little 3-wall set. So it was in the same space. So you'd look one way, and it was the infirmary, and you put the cameras there and look the other way, and it's the dress shop. And then they said, oh, let's use the infirmary. So that's been evolving, and it's much easier to work in this year, you know. I think my favorite set to work in is probably Abigail's, and the saloon's just wonderful because it's a big open space and it looks pretty and it's easy to work in and stuff like that. Oh, now you must have seen it, but what the new art director has done, production designer has done with the Coulter's place is just, that was a tough set to work in visually. Now it's beautiful.
Well,
We learned, you know,
Rosie, they wrote for Rosie to add a window, right?
Yes, and Rosie fixed it up, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, Lee, come on, you know, what does he know about anything? So Rosie's made it beautiful, you know. And but I think for us going to the set, I mean, as you well know, we don't go anywhere else. So sometimes we have to play the set as other places and to try and make them look different. So you guys don't notice, I'm sure you do, but you don't notice that, oh, it's not really in there. Or for us to go and as directors to go and find a new angle we haven't shot before. There's one coming up, which you'll see, which in an area I've only ever used once, but I don't know if other directors have, I don't think they have. But in behind the stables, I did a scene coming up. I think it's in the next episode. I forget, it's been a while, where we looked through all the way up to the town, and we did a scene way in the back. With Nathan and with Elizabeth and little Jack, and that was fun, and that was a new for us. We hadn't shot back there, and I said, oh, let's try it and see if we can make it work. And it came from the next scene, which needed to be with Joseph at a wagon. So I said, well, that's going to be over there. And so if they come from the front, which was written, Erin will see them, Elizabeth will see them. That doesn't make any sense because she's not supposed to see them until she rounds the corner. I know, let's go to the back, and then she doesn't see him until she rounds the corner. So it kind of it came out of a need to hide Joseph till the next scene. You know what I mean? So it just came out of how the heck are we going to hide him? Oh, we'll go to the back, and then suddenly we're in a new space we've never used before. So trying to find new angles and new corners and new little things that are. It's when you've been there for 10 years, it's sometimes hard.
Yeah.
And particularly since you really can't add buildings to that set. So
and that's the sad part. That's the sad reality of you know, the whole location. Really, that's our sad reality. So we'd love to keep. We'd love to extend. Put a suburb out the back there. That'd be great. You know?
We would
Union
like
City, Buxton, all those places. Well, switching gears a little bit here, Deborah Martin from Memphis, Tennessee, wonders how you got into directing in general, and then on to When Calls the Heart in particular.
I am most blessed. I have wanted to do this job since I was 5, and I saw a performance at Swan Lake, and I thought, I want to do something that has to do with that. Because when you're little, you think actors, there's just actors, right? There's nothing else. It's just the actors. They go and make this stuff up, you know. And so, you know, then I moved on and realized I made my first short film when I was 14 or 15. Made a little short film, and then got into film school. And then from there, I actually got a job doing live television, doing a 2-hour variety show when I was in my early 20s. And that was fun. I learned a lot of doing that. It was different. Live television is different. And then from there, I started a commercial company. We made commercials. and then there was a show here in Canada called The Beachcombers, which ran for 20 years, and so I got an opportunity to do that. And I was directing that, learning how to do drama. And then 21 Jump Street came to town, and I was the first Canadian director hired to do 21 Jump Street. And from that, I learned how to do big shows, how they're done, how the mechanics work, it's very different. It's just functionally, it's different how American television is shot. There's a technique to it. I mean, you watch British television or Canadian television, they all have similar things like wide shots and close-ups, but there's kind of a way of doing things that each of them have that are slightly different. They just are. So I kind of evolved that way, and I did Jump Street, and then I just kept my career going, and then did TV movies, and but it's something I've wanted to do since I was very little, and I feel most fortunate that they'll still have me. So I feel blessed for that, for sure. Yeah.
Say we want you for how many seasons that we can go to. So
I'm in.
Well, I love it.
How'd you land in Hope Valley?
How did I
From
land in
21
Hope
Jump
Valley?
Street to Hope Valley.
Yeah, well, it was funny. I was up in a place called Nelson. My wife was, she studied to be an art therapist, and she was taking her master's in a little town in the Kootenays in here in BC called Nelson. And I was up on holiday with her, and I knew that this show was coming. It was originally supposed to be in the States. And I knew it was coming, and I talked to my agent, and I said, listen, there's a show kind of interested in, would you explore it for me? And he said, yeah, sure. And it was, I don't know if it was Colorado or Arizona. I can't remember where they were going to go.
Colorado.
Was it Colorado? Thank you.
I think so.
Anyway, so and then I forgot about it. And then I got a phone call out of the blue saying, from Michael's assistant, saying, I would like to interview you for this show. And I said, what's the show called? And he told me, oh, that's that show. Where are you shooting? So we're shooting in Vancouver. I said, what? I had no idea. They said, can you be at a meeting tomorrow? And I'm an 8-hour drive away with a tiny little airport about an hour from me. And I said, I will be there. I will be there. And I made a phone call, booked a flight on this little airplane, which I love little airplanes anyway, flew into Vancouver, drove down to the set, met Michael, interviewed with him. He said, I told him the story. He said, why, we could have seen you next week. I thought,
Now you tell me.
it's okay. And they liked me, I guess, and I got to do one show, and they liked that, and then they may do another one. I like that, and I've been fooling them for 10 years now, so
No fooling involved.
Well, we have a question from Leah Hardwick, but I'm thinking you already kind of addressed it. But she's from St. Charles, Missouri. Asks, how many episodes do you direct each season?
On average, I've done, we do blocks. So for those who are not familiar, there's been a technique developed in the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years where we'll put two shows together, and we'll do two shows at once, and it's called a block. And the reason for that is it's economics more than anything else, but we love it. I mean, I love it. A lot of us love it because it lets us fit into a story for more time. We do either 5 or 6 blocks a season, and typically I've done 3 of those.
Okay.
In the first season, I only did 5 episodes because what they did was they didn't do it in block fashion in the first season. They just did it episodic. So
right.
That was 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then so sometimes if we do 5 blocks, I'll do 3. If we do 3 blocks, I'll do 3. Last season, I only did 2. And then the prior season, season 8, I wasn't on the show at all. And that was my choice because of COVID. I just finished a film as COVID started, and I got really ill with a bacterial lung infection. I was sick for about 2 months, and my wife asked me not to go back just because we didn't know, right? We literally
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
So she said, hon, I think, maybe not a good idea. So I took the season off, and they were very gracious. And then last season I went back, and Peter was doing 2, I was doing 2, Siobhan was doing 1. And then at the last minute, they added a block. So Peter ended up doing 3 because they added this block at the last minute.
Okay.
So I do either 2 or 3 blocks, basically. So
okay.
there was a short answer to that.
We love the
But
long answer.
I like the one that it's
Yes.
so you're good with that. So can you kind of describe what the schedule is like? Because, you know, what time do you have to absorb the script and then, you know, have your decisions and then communicate it? What's that director process?
Well, blocks are not, see, episode of block, they're all kind of work the same. So let's say, just to make it easy here, let's say you're doing, let's talk about episodes just to make it easy. Let's say you're doing 10 episodes, and let's say those episodes are shot over 8 days, just for sake of argument. So that would mean that, and they're all bunched together. So that means that the first episode, there's 8 days prior to shooting it that you prep. And because of that, they're also doing sets. So sometimes that's actually a little longer. Once you get started, there's 8 days to shoot the first one, then there's 8 days before you shoot the second one, third one. So now, if you were to shoot the first one, often what you do is you prep, shoot, so 8 and 8, you edit somewhere in there, which is 2 or 3 days, and then you come back for 8 more. So you're always prepping for 8 and shooting for 8. And sometimes you prep, shoot, which I've done on a lot of shows, and then you edit while you're prepping. So you have this 8-day period where you can sit down with your script, go over the rewrites, talk to the production department, you don't really talk to the cast on a series because they know what they're out there doing it. So, you know, it's not, you don't do any rehearsals or anything like that, but you're building new sets that you might require. You're looking at new props that you might require, costume decisions, all of those mechanics in that 8-day period. And again, with that, every show is different, by the way. My son's, his show, Snowpiercer, they're 21 days an episode because they're a big budget show.
Right.
Our show is 6.5 days, which is, so a block is kind of nice because you got 13, 13 days. And 6.5, I try to tell people say, well, how do you do it? I said, well, it's okay to do think about this for a second. So 6.5 days to do a contemporary piece. Remember Cedar Cove? I don't know if you guys watch Cedar Cove or anything like that. But, okay, Cedar Cove. So that was also 6.5 days, but it's a contemporary piece. They're wearing jeans, they're wearing hoodies, they're wearing a suit, they're driving normal cars. Our show, they're in corsets, the hair's up, the wardrobe, there's a horse. It's a horse? No, let's make it 3 horses. And let's have a wagon in there. And let's have a stagecoach. And you know what? A couple of Model T cars that don't work, it'd be great too. And off you go. Have fun. Have fun.
Love it.
So it's basically, you prep for a period of time that's equal to the shooting period of time, whatever that is, 6.5, 8, 12, 13, whatever. And it just cycles through like that. So yeah, so you do have time. You have lots of time to prepare, really. You do. Yeah.
Sounds like your time in live TV is probably serving you while you're doing this.
Yeah, there's a panic as the second hand's ticking up to 7 o'clock, and they're going, we're gonna go, here we go. No going back. No going back.
Wow.
Can you talk a little bit about how, because whenever we see the credits roll, there's always a first AD. I don't know if there's sometimes a second AD. Can you talk a little bit, because your job is such a creative process as far as choosing shots and how things are shot. How do you guys work as a team in shooting that, or deciding what to shoot?
What to shoot? The ADs are responsible for the mechanics of the system. They're responsible for organizing the day, and it's I got to be honest with you, it's magic. I've never done that job. So they've got to look at a lot of things like, all right, we've got 7 scenes in Abigail's. Okay, they should all be done together. We've got 4 scenes in the church. They should be done together. We've got 6 in the saloon. They should be done together. Okay, so that seems pretty easy. Oh, wait a minute. Bill's not available that day. Aaron's not available this day. There's this, and then they shuffle that all around. So their magic is figuring out a way to make this move as efficiently as possible. And I don't get in their way because I don't understand how that works.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a first AD, and they do that with the second AD. And then on the floor, the first AD kind of cracks the whip, if you will. I mean, not literally, but keeps the thing moving, keeps the thing rolling, thinks of the day. They understand time in a way that I don't get. So this should take us, an hour, and Bill, who's I've been working with for 20 years, Neill, this is going to be an hour and 45 minutes. So you sure? I said, yes, I'm positive. And an hour and 44 minutes and 30 seconds later, he's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So they do that, right? And then then the second AD, they're helping. They while the show's going, they're massaging the changes because things change all the time. So the first AD can't do that. They're on the set. So in concert with the second, they're organizing that. And the third AD, they're helping get the actors ready, knocking on the doors, saying, "Hey, we're ready in 15. Make sure this is happening." They're back at the unit organizing that. So that team is basically keeping the machine rolling. And as we hit log jams and bumps in the road, they're dancing and moving and shifting and making that all work. And I've got friends who are ADs, and right now they're going through hell because, of course, a very close friend of ours, she's working on a show, and of course a lot of the actors are getting COVID, so you find that out at 9 o'clock on a Thursday. And so everything you're doing tomorrow, that actor's not in anymore.
Oh no. Wow.
So now you're up till 3 a.m. trying to figure out what the heck are we going to do tomorrow. So that's a crisis situation, but they solve those problems, and we can sometimes help. I say, well, I'll tell you what I can do. What if I do this and this and this? But I just tend to not get my fingers in there too deep. I say, you guys tell me what you need and I'll make it work. So, because you're the masters at this, without them, we're nothing. So.
Well, I love hearing that. And I think as Hearties, we watch the show week to week. It's always a good reminder to hear about the high number of people behind the scenes that are just, working their tails off for us. So
Yes,
it's great to hear how everyone works together in that way.
Yeah, definitely. So you're talking about the rough road. We've seen a preview for a traffic jam in Hope Valley. So I was thinking probably that's going to be controlled chaos with the people on foot. You have the cars, you have the horses, the wagons. How do you kind of control that as a director?
I hope. John Tinker, I said, what are you thinking? Are you out of your mind? Thanks a lot. And originally, I think he had eight cars in there, some darn thing. And of course, then, art hits up against economics a lot. So of course, the economics looked at it and said, we can't afford this at all. And I sat down with it and I said, John, can you let me, I promise I will honor, and here's the thing that often happens, and it's a responsibility that every director should have, is that you read a script and you say, all right, we can't actually do this. And in this case, we didn't think we could. And I said, but I need to honor what the writer intended. So how do I honor what they intended? So I sat down with it and I came up with a way to do it with 5 cars. I shouldn't be telling all the behind the scenes stuff because we hide a lot of that when you're watching it. You're not going to notice. And then I built a little set piece. So I looked at how it would all work. And the other thing you have to know is those roads are, as you guys know, those roads are really wide. 3 cars across and they could still get through. Why don't they just drive around? I don't understand. So we can't decide, we'll put a wagon here that's offloading into the mercantile. That'll block that. We'll put another wagon here. And then with the lenses, we'll close it off so you really can't tell that there's tons of room to drive around. And then on the day, what I did was I said, we parked all the cars where they were going to end. And I said, so we're going to say, here's how they're going to end. And then I took the cast and we rehearsed the whole scene, coming and going, even though the cars were there. And I'd say, okay, this car comes in now, it was already there. And you end up here. So they all knew where they were going to end. So they were staying out of the way of the cars as they came in. And then we shot the very first shot of the scene first. So we knew where the first 2 cars would land. And I wanted them to look like they almost hit. So we did that 3 times to get it really, if they were nervous, got it.
Sure.
So now we all knew where they were going to be. And then, as I said earlier with the wedding, the ladies take longer to get ready. They just do, and the guys don't. So on one angle, I had Jack and Lucas, May, Jack, Jack, Nathan, Lucas, and May were on one angle. So I said, get them ready first. So they did. And we shot all their stuff. Now, by the time they're ready, I can come around and shoot Joseph because he's now ready. Come around again and shoot Loretta. And who else? And we kept coming around the clock, if you will. And then finally we
Right.
get around, we're on Aaron and Rosemary, and we shoot that. And then and then by that time, all the cards. So you kind of just, in your head, you've kind of worked the whole thing out, the mechanics of it. And then you've got to show everybody what that looks like in some fashion, what we call blocking. And then you've got to pull it apart and start to put it back together again, so that in the end it all cuts, so you kind of, and then I realized we'd made a mistake.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Right at the end, right at the end. We put Lucas's table, which you'll see, in the wrong spot.
Oh,
oh no.
And we'd
Oh.
already shot that.
Oh no.
So then we had to figure out how to go in and just pick that out and fix it and put it back in. So you didn't notice it was in the wrong spot.
That's brilliant. That's
Hopefully we fool
brilliant.
you.
Oh,
Because
love
Hearties
it.
noticed nothing, right? Hearties, we noticed.
Oh, trust me, you know more than I know. God, they're gonna ask, I don't remember. What are you talking about? What?
They're gonna be zooming in on that table. Where's
That's
your
right. That's
table?
right. Yeah, that is so funny. Oh, I love
Jason
it.
shouldn't tell his tricks, I know, but what the heck?
So tell us all the secrets.
I love it. I love it. Well, Neill, this has been such a great pleasure, and so glad that we had the opportunity to talk with you, and the Hearties will enjoy this. Oh my word. So we're looking forward to like the second half of season 9 and hopefully season 10.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But thank you so much. I really appreciate
Oh, my
it.
pleasure. My pleasure. You guys really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you very much.
So
Talk
much
again.
fun.
Okay.
And thanks, Hearties, for watching this week. And we will see you Sunday, of course, for that awesome traffic jam coming to Hope Valley, 8/7 Central on Hallmark Channel. I think you probably know that time by now. And then join us on Twitter and use the hashtag Hearties to tweet with us. We'll see ya.
Bye-bye. Bye.